Nobody in the Thula Valley called him by his first name. Not the park rangers, not the two journalists who came out looking for a story, not even his daughter when she phoned from Johannesburg on Sundays. Everyone just said, Upa Hendrik. He'd been on that land so long that the younger rangers assumed he'd always been there, the way you assume a big tree was there before you. He came to the Limpopo bush in 1987. The culling operations were still running that year, whole herds being shot down to numbers the parks could manage. Hendrik had taken a short contract as a veterinary assistant during one of those operations and lasted 3 days. He drove to a guest farm in the Lowveld, sat on the stoep for a week eating other people's food, and then started asking around about land he could lease. He ended up with 42 hectares on the edge of what is now Mapungubwe National Park. Back then, it was unfenced communal grazing land, dry and flat, with one struggling acacia grove along the eastern boundary. He built a stone house with 2 rooms, drilled a borehole, and planted a small vegetable patch that the heat destroyed twice before it took. The elephants came in the early 1990s. There were 30 of them at once. By the time they pushed through the old fence line onto Hendrik's land, there were 11 left. The rest had been shot after the herd raided a maize crop near a village, and before that, killed a man. When a herd gets that label, dangerous, unpredictable, the next step is usually relocation or culling. These 11 were already on borrowed time. Hendrik didn't go near them. He sat on an overturned crate near the borehole most mornings with his coffee and watched where they moved, how long they stayed at the waterhole, which direction they went when a vehicle passed on the dirt road. He kept a logbook, a cheap spiral-bound thing, and filled it with small observations. He noted that the matriarch, a large cow with a torn left ear and one tusk shorter than the other, never let the herd settle near open ground. She kept them against trees or low scrub, even when resting. He wrote, "She is waiting for something bad. She has learned to wait for it." After a few weeks of watching, he started leaving food near the waterhole. Marula fruit, mostly sweet potato peels, whatever he could get cheaply from the market in Musina. He'd place it and walk back to the house. He did this for 4 months. The matriarch would only approach the food after he was well out of sight. Then one morning, she came within 50 meters while he was still standing there, looked at him for a long time, and went back to eating. He wrote that down too. He made one bad mistake early on. He came out before sunrise to check a fence post and walked into the eastern tree line without thinking, right into the gap the herd used as their early morning shelter. The matriarch came at him fast, ears wide, and he ran back to the house and didn't go outside until midday. After that, he made a point of going nowhere near those trees before 8 in the morning, and he never made that mistake again. The Conservation Authority wanted the herd relocated. Hendrik drove to their offices in Musina and argued against it for 2 hours, then came back and did it again the following month. Eventually, they agreed to leave the herd where it was, partly because relocation was expensive, and partly, he told his daughter, because nobody else was volunteering to take them. He sank a second borehole in 2001 when a drought year dried the first one down to mud. He used his pension for it. He built and repaired fencing along the village boundary for years, the kind of low barrier that wouldn't stop an elephant, but would push them in a different direction. His daughter said his hands were never clean for the last 10 years. A research team from the University of Pretoria came out around 2005, studying stress indicators in elephant herds with histories of conflict. One of them, Dr. Chepiso Mokoena, kept coming back. She spent parts of 3 field seasons camped near the property. She told Hendrik the herd's stress readings were unusually low, given what they'd been through. He said he didn't know about that, but they seemed calmer than when he'd first seen them. She later wrote a paper about it. He didn't read it. The torn-eared matriarch died in 2009. They found her near the northern fence line one morning, already gone. The herd stood around her most of that day before moving off. Hendrik noted it in the logbook and kept going. A younger female took over, and over the following months, he learned her patterns the same way he'd learned the old ones. Slowly, from a distance, without rushing anything. By the time he was 78, the herd was 18. 3 calves had been born on or near his land over the years. He used a stick to walk by then, and his daughter visited more often, trying each time to talk him into coming to Johannesburg. He told her the same thing every time. He'd come when he was done here. She stopped arguing after a while. He died in March, on a Tuesday, in his bed. His daughter Rentia drove up that evening. The park authority sent someone the next morning to help with the paperwork. 2 days later, she was sitting inside when she heard them. Not a crash or a trumpet, just the sound of something large moving through dry grass, getting closer. She looked out the window, and they were already in the clearing. All 18 of them, standing outside the stone walls of the house, maybe 15 meters away. She went out and stood on the step. They didn't move off. A few of them ran their trunks along the stone walls, slowly, back and forth across the same patches. The youngest calf pressed against its mother's front leg and stared at the house. They stayed through the afternoon and into the evening. Rentia brought a chair outside and sat with them. She said later she didn't know what else to do. She called Dr. Mokoena, who drove up from Pretoria the next morning. They stood together in the clearing for a while. Eventually, Rentia asked what she thought was happening. Mokoena said she'd watched these animals for years, and she'd seen them do this before. Go back to a place, touch things, stay longer than made obvious sense. She said she had notebooks full of data on this herd, and she still couldn't give a clean answer. But they did it with Hendrik's house the same way they'd done it when the old matriarch died. They went to the place, and they stayed. The herd left before sunrise. Rentia sat on the stoep most of that night. She buried her father on the property, near the second borehole, under an umbrella thorn he'd planted in 1994. It's a big tree now. After the burial, she stayed on another week before driving back to Johannesburg. Every morning, the herd came through on their route to the waterhole, the same as they had for years. Rentia comes back to the property every few months and says they're always there. Same route, same time. The logbook is at the University of Pretoria now, used in field courses. The last entry, written about a week before he died, reads, "Calf still nursing but eating independently. Mother relaxed." The whole group looked settled this morning. No concerns.